Hello everybody, welcome back to Daytoday Chess. This is Sabina, bringing you back the classics. For today, we will be looking at a very nice game, I think, between Edgar Colle and Raul Capablanca, played in Karlsbad in 1929. I think it's a very interesting game that shows how to react when somebody is attacking you, what would be some good ways to counterattack or defend when being attacked. So let's check out the game. So Colle actually chose his own system here, e3. And I think for those who are not familiar with the system, basically Colle's system is as follows. So he puts this pawn in d4, so following the principle of chess, having a pawn in the center, and after that he strengthens that pawn in d4. So with e3, c3, this knight in f3, so many defenses in d4, just making sure one pawn will remain on d4. Additionally, he develops this bishop in d3. Also with this pawn in e3 and c3, this bishop in d3 is quite safe. After which he castles, develops this knight in d2, and then prepares to play e4 and basically bring the second pawn to the center. Why doesn't he do it immediately, this e4? Well, because on this particular move order, after d4, knight f6, we cannot play e4, and he wants to make sure his d4 pawn will be well protected, so will not be playing knight c3 here to play e4, and this is the way the line goes, basically. Now he has a little problem, and I've already inserted it here. This bishop in c1 will not be developed for a really long time. So basically with e3, that bishop remains kind of closed and will not get opened until white will get ready to push the pawn to e4. So it is an interesting system, not played that much anymore these days, but definitely on those times it was quite an interesting and good attacking system for white. And Capablanca had a really good approach, I think, because first, okay, we don't allow e4 immediately, but it was already known that Colle was playing this system that he invented himself. So Capablanca chose this move order to put more pressure and actually control the e4 square. Like that, he would try as much as possible, for as long as possible, not to allow that e4 break of the position, or just improving the center for white. So knight bg2 was continued, e6. Now black hasn't put any pawn in the center yet, and of course he doesn't want to play d5 to close this bishop, so his break of the center will be with c5. Bishop d3, bringing another piece, like I told you, to prepare the e4 break, and now c5 by Capablanca. It's time to get to attack the center. Castle. It's time to finish the development. Knight to c6. Now we even have a little threat, this knight b4, because the bishop in d3 is going to be exposed, so we need to make sure we are ensuring it, and that is the reason why Colle invented this idea with c3, and he did so. You see, the pawn strengthens the pawn in d4, the center. Additionally, it controls the square b4, so this knight will never have the opportunity, at least not for quite some time, to play knight b4 and win the bishop. And now white is getting ready to play e4. Black has to finish his development, and so he did. Bishop to e7, e4. Now white has two pawns in the center, and we have to find a way to destroy that if possible. But we cannot allow these two pawns central pawns. So there are two ways to kind of destroy those. Either play d5 and try to get some French structure, but then you know in French how it is. You remain with this bishop, light square bishop that does not really get traded, and it is quite annoying to play with the structure. And that is the reason why Capablanca decided to open up the position. So he first captured in d4. And now, surprisingly, white captured back with the knight. It's very it's not as natural as you might think. In fact, with the pawn, it's very natural to keep the control over the center, and there's no need to be worried about this knight b4 because we can play bishop b1. And if bishop a6, we can play rook e1. And if knight d3, threatening both the rook and the bishop, well, to take mostly, of course, we want the rook, but we want the bishop as well. It's time to decide which of these two bishops to give away, and I think white can simply capture and then possibly play d5 and utilize the e-file, the fact that black hasn't castled yet, and you know, just to try to get more space. So c takes d4 is just more natural. So instead Colle capture with the knight. Maybe he was hoping that black would capture back and now he would take and there's no knight b4 anymore and white still has the center, but of course that did not happen. What is the point for black to take again? Nothing, there's no real threat related to my knight, so I don't need to make that trade. Simply castle. Queen e2. Now this bishop in d3 is exposed, so Capablanca went knight e5. I like this move a lot because I know what the continuation was in this position. I don't know if you're familiar with this position or not, but basically we kind of got some type of Sicilian, and it seems that with this pawn in c3, black has this diagonal that's open. So in this position, Capablanca came up with this great move, queen c8, with the idea bishop a6 skewering the queen and the rook. Queen c7 would be the typical move that people make in the Sicilian, but simply f4, you have to move the knight, and now I also have some knight b4, 5 threads. We also have attacks on the king side. You know, what was the point to put the knight in e5 if you're going to be chased like that away? That's why queen to c8 is such a great move, because now after f4, which was played in the game, you don't need to worry about moving the knight yet. We can play bishop a6 intermediate move first, queen d1, and now we're coming back to c6. And why not bishop takes f1? Well, because after bishop takes f1, black would totally lose here. After takes king in e5, taking the knight and the bishop, you have to move one of them. The other one is going to be lost, and white has plenty of material, basically 2 pieces for rook and the pawn, and a really nice potential attack here with e5. Those 2 bishops get open, the queen comes towards the attack, this rook can come as well, so possibly on the e-file or something like that. And white has definitely a very good play here. So of course with black we do not want to take that rook. Instead, of course, we go back knight c6. So it was just temporary that we played knight e5, chasing the bishop away and getting the control over this diagonal. Now of course white starts the attack. We are basically in a Sicilian. It is very typical for white to start the attack on the king side, and that is what Colle did. Rook f3, preparing rook h3, e5, opening up that bishop, and, you know, simply attack on the h-file and h7 pawn. And now Capablanca's approach was very nice, I think. He played g6 immediately, just to make sure all white's attack is going to be annihilated. This bishop in c2 does not do very much anymore. The only thing black has to be careful about is some sacrificing in g6. We often see those sacrifices and at least draw for white, but he's going to be careful about that. And other than this, simply the diagonal has been closed and white is going to struggle to find the right way to attack. Knight 2 to b3 was played, and now of course we trade. Now we're happy with the trade. We need to create some plan. If black doesn't find anything, white's plan is quite simple. Like I said, rook h3. Okay, now it's more complicated with this pawn in g6, but maybe still white could have some ideas to just play e5, and then maybe instead of rook h3, maybe rook g3. The queen could come to g4, maybe sacrifices in g6, or even f5 is another possibility. So we have to switch the play from the king side to the queen side, and this is what Capablanca is doing. He's making this trade. Now that the knight went away, this e4 pawn is not protected anymore. We always have to check for the changes in the position. If some piece moved from a specific square, it could have been doing something really great there. So we have to see what the piece on the new square is not doing anymore, and then utilize that to our advantage. And that's exactly what Capablanca did. Bishop to b7, putting pressure in e4. Queen e2, only way to protect that. And now another move that keeps the position very dynamic on the queen side, not on the king side, bishop c5. So pinning the knight, also at some point possibly utilizing this pin with the threats of capturing, and maybe that bishop in c2 would be lost. And here white went rook h3, continuing the attack. And a very beautiful move by Capablanca, queen to c6. I love this move. Just utilizing this pin. The knight cannot capture the queen, obviously, but basically you are bringing another piece that's going to create some threats in g2. And right now, in this particular moment, simply putting pressure in e4. And for white, there are no really good ways to protect the pawn other than pushing e5. And now after pushing, we go knight d5. And it seems now that black does not really have enough pieces to protect the king. So white gets ready with queen f2 to bring the queen to attack to in h7. And now that the queen moved, we are not pinned anymore. So we have to remember that there is a threat in this moment. So black has to do something immediately. Bishop takes d4. Okay, you cannot play queen h4 for the moment. Takes. Now we continue rook to c8, putting pressure in c2. And here bishop d1 was played by Colle, a good and only move, in fact, because queen h4 would have lost to a very beautiful, pause the video if you want to find it, knight f6. And now the bishop is still attacked. The threat of mate is opened right now. And of course, the knight came to defend the threat in h7. So in this position, for example, like the only move that you can think about for white to do to defend would be rook g3 or some queen movement. But then you're simply losing this queen takes e2. And then let's say you would think of taking, well, don't worry, you're going to be mated soon with queen d1 and queen takes. And, you know, if you don't do so, you simply have a piece down. So bishop d1 was the only move. And now Capablanca has to find a way to defend against this threat. And the best way is to try to open up the position and find ways to bring pieces to defend, of course. f6, a very typical move, getting ready to bring the rook to f7 to protect h7. Now, queen h4 was actually a mistake. It seems that this is the right continuation for white, but at some point when you realize your attack doesn't work anymore, you need to just retreat and try to find some other plans. And rook g3 possibly would have been just a better continuation for white to defend g2 and just say, okay, there's no more attack, let me make sure I'm defending and finishing up my development. After queen h4, rook f7, simply protecting. Now bishop f3, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to pin the knight. Okay, you did, but queen c4, because now the weakness in white's position is this d4 pawn, bishop e3, knight takes e3, bishop takes b7. This was the idea of white with that bishop e3. And now we have this nice move, intermediate, knight f5, getting with the knight out of the attack. Now another good move, rook to c7. The bishop has to move once again, and look at how many weaknesses white has in this particular position. This rook in h3 is attacking, not anymore. It was attacking, but it's not anymore. And all these pawns are going to start falling. And that's exactly what Capablanca did. Capture, king h1. Pawn takes. Okay, now look at this beautiful pawn structure of white has simply nothing. Very good move, rook e7, going for another pawn. Queen takes b2, already went for another one. And now what it looks like white is going to escape here. No, not at all, of course not. After rook takes e7, Colle resigned. Such a great game by Capablanca, defending and counterattacking. Stay tuned for more tomorrow. Thank you.